couple of weeks ago, a friend of mine took me on a ride to Alabama, New York. I've lived here for 10 years, and I didn't know there was such a place as Alabama, New York. When he said, "Look, there's the Alabama swamps," I was offended because I thought he was making fun of where I'm from, down there on the Gulf Coast of Alabama. But no, he was talking about the Iroquois National Wildlife Refuge. I didn't know about that either. "Can you hunt on it?" I asked, because I didn't even know the answer to that. We were on our way to Oakfield, to Z&M Ag and Turf, also known as Xanadu, that is, to John Deere tractor aficionados. I didn't know such a place on earth existed, and now, even 2 weeks later, when I close my eyes, I see green and yellow. Well, excuse me, green and gold. My friend needed new Plow Points. Now look, for the most part, I grew up surrounded by farms, in farm culture. My uncle was a farmer. He had inherited the family farm my dad grew up on. I finished my high school years in central Illinois, where most of my classmates and friends were in Votech school during the afternoons, training in some aspect or another of agribusiness. I had no idea what he was talking about when he said he needed new plow points. I sure wasn't going to admit I didn't know what plow points were, but I didn't know what they were until he handed me one. "Here, carry this one. My back hurts," he said. It was a long, thin, heavy piece of steel about 2 feet long and 2 inches wide, forged with angles at either end. "Oh," I said, "that's what these are called. Plow points. I'd seen them my entire life and had no idea what they were called. How is that possible? Is it because I wasn't paying attention? Perhaps. But it's more likely that I didn't know what they were called because I'm not in the business of knowing what they're called. Something a farmer bolts to his tractor somehow, that's all I need to know. The vegetables he raised are delicious and nutritious without my knowing." It's about definitions, you see. Occasionally, we have to admit we're not in the business of knowing what things are called because someone else takes care of it for our benefit. We have our own thing going on. I mean, if I wanted a job at Harrison, besides basic competency, I'd need training. Someone would have to explain what this flashing light meant and why it was important for that thing to get down the line, and so on. The most menial tasks, outside of common household tasks, have their own definitions. Imagine you want to be a receptionist at a doctor's office, which entails all of answering the phone and writing things down in an appointment calendar. It's that simple, right? Until you sit down to try to work the phone, which has more buttons than a Boeing 747. Certain medical offices have receptionists whose job it is to direct your call. In a society where vocation is more and more specialized, where it takes a separate dictionary for each basic job, we get to where we can't talk to each other. The pastor business is notorious for this, with all its theological terms and made-up doctrinal words, one of which is my personal favorite, the genus apotelesmaticum. Genus apotelesmaticum, a very long Latin phrase which means that Jesus, when he was acting like God, used his divine nature, and when he was acting like man, used his human nature. See? A much longer, complex paragraph carrying a complex meaning can be summarized in a single phrase. Saying genus apotelesmaticum is like saying supercalifragilisticexpialidocious. It has no real meaning by itself, but once you know the whole song, it's fun to say, and everyone else who knows what you're talking about can carry on a conversation with you. Saying, "I believe in God," is a rather short phrase which summarizes quite a bit of complex information, isn't it? I think it's comforting that some of the 11 doubted when they saw Jesus. They worshiped him as God, but some of them doubted. And here should follow a speech about how you should not doubt, about how your faith should be firm and all that, but Jesus skips all that. He looks in their doubting eyes and says, "All authority in heaven and on earth has been given to me." Authority is a pretty small word with a complex paragraph under it, isn't it? Jesus is essentially saying, in a word, go read Genesis 1 and 2, which is a lot of words. It's the technical language of Christianity, the definitions that you've got to know in order to be a Christian. Jesus is God, and God has given him all authority, whatever that is and however that works. But some doubted. Isn't that comforting to you? Perhaps you've seen this your entire life, but you weren't entirely sure what it was you were looking at. The genus apotelesmaticum, or the Trinity in unity, or supercalifragilisticexpialidocious, or whatever. Some of them doubted. If even some of the 11 apostles doubted, then also we should not be afraid to doubt, because Jesus has been given all authority. It's his business. He bought the business with his own sweat and blood. Moreover, his pain and suffering purchased us as commodities, as laborers, so that he could train us and put us to work in a way that benefits him. I mean, he loves us, and it gives him pleasure to train us up, and in a way that benefits us. I mean, the resurrection of the body and the life everlasting is a pretty good salary, don't you think? It was the Father's will to create the business and give it to Jesus. The Holy Spirit was further given in order to give the business life. And here we are, alive, doing our jobs, more or less, in the business of Jesus, which we call the church, baptizing and teaching, beginning with basics like, I baptize you in the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Holy Spirit, and opening up the mysteries of this vast, sprawling business, which is international, global, and local, all at the same time, with complexities like genus apotelesmaticum. He created it, gave it life, and has all authority over it. Creation, that is. And you, I suppose. The mystery of the Trinity is enough for today, isn't it? But you, even you, have the definitions to bring this mystery to all nations in all its fullness, even if you doubt. After all, he is with you always to the end of the age.